start over today's discussion on gender and just transition. We are honored to have with us Ms. Matsuura as our guest speaker, bringing her expertise as a gender specialist from the International Labour Organization to enrich our discussion. Thank you all for being part of today's discussion, focusing on gender and just transition. Firstly, I extend my gratitude to Professor Purnabha, the founding member of the Just Transition Research Center. Professor Purnabha, a trailblazer in initiating discussions on just transition in India, has made significant contributions, authoring over 30 articles and reports related to the framework, methodology, strategies, and policies of just transition, providing invaluable insights into this sector. Special appreciation is due to Ms. Nandana Bhattacharjee, a dedicated PhD scholar in the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, who is a key contributor to this report that we are discussing today. In today's dialogue, we aim to explore the increasingly apparent intersections between gender and just transition. This exploration will delve into the concept of a just transition, emphasizing its importance, recognizing the pivotal role of gender in the journey towards a more sustainable and equitable future is essential for fostering inclusive and effective environmental policies. The purpose of this discussion is to illuminate the intertwined relationship between gender and the imperative of a just transition. And we have with us Ms. Matsuura, who is a gender specialist of the ILO Decent Work Technical Support Team for South Asia, based in New Delhi. She provides technical support, training, and advisory services, focusing on advancing gender equality and women's empowerment in the world of work. There are 7 countries in the sub-region: Afghanistan, Bangladesh, India, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. Specific areas of her work include promoting equality and non-discrimination, women's economic and social empowerment, and women's entrepreneurial development. Recent work for women in the informal economy, such as home-based workers and domestic workers, and addressing gender-based violence and issues in the care economy. She has been part of the development of various materials, including training materials on women workers' rights and women's entrepreneurship development. She was also part of the team that produced a regional report on childcare, which is a joint work by the International Labour Organization, Asian Development Bank, United Nations Research Institute for Social Development, and United Nations Development Program. Before joining the Decent Work Technical Support Team, she worked as a Chief Technical Advisor, CTO, of the ILO Way Out of Informality Project in Delhi, which worked on supporting the transition from the informal to the formal economy in Bangladesh, India, and Nepal. She also worked in various roles in Indonesia, Bangladesh, Vietnam, and Thailand. So now I would like to request Ms. Nandana Bhattacharjee to share her views on seeing through gender lens for just transition and what are the major findings of this. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Ms. Matsuura, for joining us. So this report, which is titled Gender and Just Transition, Exploring the Opportunities of a Gender Inclusive Transition in India, this report, it starts by drawing upon, it talks about the significance of gender in just transition. It begins by explaining the difference between sex and gender, and it deconstructs the notion of gender. The report then focuses on the challenges that women face, women working in the mines they face, and these challenges are like gender-based discrimination and how their contribution and their work is devalued. It has also been seen that women workers are often excluded from decision-making process, and they are not given the opportunity to share their ideas, which leads to a loss of interest on their part. Despite being unconstitutional and unethical, discrimination in the workplace continues to exist in various forms. It has been observed that women are extensively involved in domestic work, which leaves them with with little time to engage in productive work. Even women who work in mines or productive industries, they face turbulent situations back at home, owing to lack of cooperation from their family members. And this report here, it provides with 3 steps. It suggests 3 steps which can be adopted to achieve gender equality. So the 3 steps that we are suggesting here in this book is inclusion, reversal, and displacement. So by inclusion, we are talking about greater opportunity to access resources for those who are facing disadvantages based on age, gender, disability, race, caste, and many other factors which come up. And by reversal, we refer to the change in the traditional social roles which have been assigned to women for generations, such as taking care of the household, taking care of children, and doing the everyday household work, such as cooking. So this change can be we can bring about change if we include women in just transition process, and by empowering them, and also by involving them in decision making, increasing their participation in political processes. So in this context, women working in mines, like when we are talking about women who are working in mines, displacement here refers to a shift in their employment paradigm from that of being unpaid caregivers back at home. Now women, they are taking charge of their situations. They're working in the mines. So they are not just dependent members who are perceived as not only perceived, who are just the who are who are the wives of the maybe the coal mine worker or something, but now they are contributors. They have their own their position. They are playing an essential role in energy transition and in the coal mines. So this report highlights the significant impact that women can have in just transition processes. It notes that women they play a major role when it comes to developing and executing community specific mitigation and adaptation initiatives. However, like representation of women in just transition process and policy making, it's quite low. And historically, we have seen that women, they have led a lot of social movements. For example, if I talk about specifically to India, we know about the Chipko movement, which have been led by women, and many other. The Bishnoi movement has also been there, where women have taken part. They have led the movement. So this leading movement have women have a history of leading movement, and this makes them key and integral stakeholders when we are planning just transition, a very a process of just transition when it is going on. And also, now we hear this word bottom up approaches. It's like a buzzword. We are constantly hearing this word bottom up approach. So this book, it comes up, it focuses on 2 steps that can be adopted if we are to operationalize bottom-up approach. So the first that we are suggesting is that of going local, and the second is to ensure inclusivity. And also, here in this book, Just Transition Research Center, it has been conducting a lot of field works for quite some time now. And one of the we conducted a field work in Assam, and from that field work, I'm putting here a case study. And this case study shows how women, they have to face certain dual challenges when when the process of transition is taking place. So this case study is from Assam. So I'm talking about this woman, Sharmila. She is a woman. Her husband lost his job when there was this mine closure, and owing to this, now Sharmila is forced to take up she has now opened this snack shop in her locality, and her husband, he has moved to Bangalore in search of new employment. But Sharmila, she has 2 children, and it is becoming very difficult for her to run her family because there are multiple financial constraints that are coming up. in this situation, Sharmila, we see that she is facing challenges, like she's facing additional challenges. One, that of managing the family and the responsibilities that she has in her everyday life. And along with it, she has to run this shop to ensure her family's financial stability. The fact that her husband is in a different city, it also highlights that migration trends are quite high. And very recently, another JTRC report has been published, which focuses on migration and migration of laborers. And the report is titled Just Transition, Labor Migration in Indian Coalfields. Finally, this report, it comes up with 6 policy recommendations, which is like a roadmap uh, exploring the vital role women play in the process of just transition and how that can be well woven in the fabric. So just transition, by the very name, it talks about inclusivity. So inclusive transition ensures that well-being of every stakeholder takes place, and it provides us a direction towards social justice as well. So out of the 6 recommendations that we have, one is that of certifying the skills that women already possess. So every community, owing to their history, their social location, and multiple other things, they possess certain skills for generations. So certifying these skills can be a way through which we can empower women. And also, the second that we are talking about is that of increasing the representation of women in decision-making processes. So in India, there are legal measures that have been taken up to ensure women's participation in political processes. But often it happens that often it doesn't get materialized. So we are talking about um, a situation where we increase women's participation in political processes aligned with the legal framework that we already have. So this will ensure policies to consider gender issues, and it will grant women the legal right to access and use funds, such as in coal districts, we have this DMFT fund. So if women have the opportunity to use this fund, so it will be helpful for community development, which will in a way promote equality and help in combating the gender-based discriminations and disadvantages that are there existing. So yeah, thank you.
Ms. Bhattacharjee, for your insightful sharing. You have pointed out how gender-related discrimination gaps and policies were put in the just transition discourse. Now I would like to request Ms. Matsuura to share her views on how just transition is shaping or reshaping gender role globally as well as in India. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Purnabha, and thank you, Nandana, for having me for this important opportunity to launch the report. And first of all, congratulations to Nandana for completing the report, which touches upon a lot of key issues important for ensuring just transition for women, but not only for women but women and men maybe who may experience intersectional forms of discrimination. So you I think covers a lot of important grounds there. So congratulations. So do I speak like for 30 minutes now, or like do I speak for like 20 minutes and then we go into question and answer? Can you clarify again? Sorry.
So we can speak like 30 minutes and then we will go for a question.
Okay.
So
Okay.
another 10.
Yeah, thank you very much. So in case some audience, they're not familiar with ILO, I just want to start with the introduction of the International Labour Organization. And I'm from ILO, the office in India, covering the work in South Asia, as Purnabha explained at the beginning. So ILO is UN specialized agency that is working especially on labor issues. So you might have heard about United Nations, UN, and there are many different agencies as part of UN family. You might have heard of UNICEF working on children's rights. You might have heard of WHO working on health issues. And for ILO, we are working on labor issues. And the history of ILO goes back more than 100 years. The organization was established in 1919 with the mission to realize social justice, saying that lasting peace is not possible without social justice. And this happened at the time of industrialization in Europe, where a lot of factories started working, employing, men, women, and maybe children, not respecting human rights. So, leaders came together saying, oh, people are not commodity. They need also rights. We need certain standards to ensure that these enterprises or factories are sustainable. So ILO was established to promote labor standards. So nowadays you might have heard of, 8-hour work day, or no child labor, no forced labor. These are kind of internationally recognized standards. And these are some of the examples of the ILO work. So ILO basically creates standards to ensure that everybody is working, rights are respected, but also working conditions are such in a way that they don't violate human rights, but they also contribute to sustainable enterprises. And as part of that, promoting gender equality has been also enshrined in ILO's constitution, and it's been an important part of ILO's work from the beginning, from 1919. So one of the standards adopted at the first International Labor Conference in 1919 was on maternity protection. So over 100 years ago, there was already a recognition that, okay, women work, but their reproductive function needs to be protected. Of course, their rights needs to be protected to work, but women as biological, this sex and gender discussion, women have this reproductive function. Without protecting that, also society would not be sustainable. So maternity protection was one of the first conventions adopted in 1919. And now 2024, and ILO has been also working on just transition. So in terms of just transition, there is also a recognition from the ILO that without promoting gender equality, it will not be a just transition. Of course, there is more and more recognition that all countries require a process that where economies transition from what's been happening to more sustainable way in terms of maybe energy generation. And there's also climate change affecting a lot of workers and families. So how can we mitigate negative impacts from climate change and also support economic activities in a way that are, environmentally sustainable? And to do that, we know we have to consider gender issues because of the social structures. We know that women tend to be left behind because of the lower status in the society, limited voice and decision-making power in society. Of course, Constitution guarantees equality, but in reality, women face discrimination. Women have limited mobility, limited access to opportunities, limited access to jobs, limited access to career development opportunities, limited access to social protection. Um, so, of course, when we also talk about just transition, without considering impacts on women and men differently, you know, there we can overlook negative impacts on women. Through climate change, women often face more challenges because they are often also responsible for unpaid care work, which is also mentioned in Nandana's report. You know, they are often responsible for addressing basic needs like fetching water, fetching fuels, cooking. And with climate change, maybe for them to access water is more challenging. Maybe they have to walk more longer distance to get water, which again limits their opportunity to access education. And this also has multiplier effects on their children, especially girl children, because they may also have to leave school to look after maybe younger siblings while mother goes to get fuels or water to address the basic survival needs. And they may also have more harder time in getting their nutrition. And women also may suffer more from malnutrition because men receive priority in maybe getting better food, nutritious food, while women are seen as kind of secondary in getting nutritious food. So there could be really a lot of negative impacts. So we really need to understand possible impacts so that negative impacts can be mitigated. Having said that, I think this report talked about mining sector. And of course, I don't really have a first-hand experience in a mining sector. So what I will discuss is also based on kind of general understanding on how we should approach this issue. So many countries are, of course, closing the mine to transition to more renewable energy like solar energy or wind energy, etc. So that means, of course, there could be job loss because maybe mines could be closing. So it is important really for at the national level to have a kind of national policy or national plan on how to support this transition in a way that is just and inclusive for everyone. At the same time, local specific plan is also required because we don't know if the national policy, which should provide basic minimum standards for everyone to ensure their rights are not violated, but different local areas required maybe different local responses. So to do that, we actually need, I think, a good evidence, which academic institutions and NGOs have a great role in contributing. Of course, in terms of negative impacts, I think there could be different impacts, whether they are working in formal sector or informal sector, or whether they are from large-scale mining or small-scale mining. And it is very important to collect data and capture data to understand the working conditions of women and men, so that the evidence can be used to inform policy. So even understanding how many people are working in mines in the formal employment. So from the report, I could not figure out is also, are women working as employees or workers? My guess is a lot of women workers are working as maybe casual workers, not employees. This has also implications because if they're working as employees, then they're likely to have employment-related rights and benefits like minimum wage, health insurance, pension, leave, etc. While a lot of women, not only in mining, but in general, they tend to be also working as informal economy workers. This means that maybe they're not captured in statistics as workers. And then they are also working based on maybe payment based on unit produced. So not, monthly salary or anything. So they also receive very low wages, and they often don't have access to social protection like health insurance schemes. And they also don't have, maternity protection. They also have nowhere to maybe report in case violation happens in terms of maybe exploitation, forced labor. While if they are formal employees, maybe they can report to the labor office, or maybe office that is responsible for mines, maybe under the Ministry of Coal. I don't know where they can report. So for each state or maybe each district, it is very important to collect data on how many people are working and how many people are working formally, informal employment and informal employment, so that when we talk about the transition process, which should be inclusive, we know that, okay, for skills development opportunities, we need to at least prepare for, so many slots so that women can access these opportunities. So in terms of policy recommendation, I think it is very important to also include the importance of evidence-based data. So, government, whether national or local government, they should collect data to understand the number, but also working conditions of mine workers. And then I think report also mentioned about, various issues like violence and harassment, occupational health and safety, low wage, etc. So, as government maybe develops plan to support just transition, it is also important to include educational or awareness raising components because these women may often, especially if they're working in informal, unorganized sector, they also tend to come from communities where maybe they have limited education. So they may not also have information on their rights as workers. They may not be formal employees, but as human being, as a worker, they should have basic rights as human rights and also labor rights. And it is important for everyone to enjoy those basic rights. And for human rights and workers' rights, for everyone, for women and men, they should understand, rights to organize, rights to minimum wage, rights to safe workplace, rights to be free from child labor, from forced labor, rights to be free from discrimination, and rights to be free from violence and harassment. So this action plan or program, there should be a component to raise awareness among workers on their rights so that when they transition into new employment opportunities, that this knowledge would be still very useful. So that it would be also very important. And also, you mentioned about the importance of having women's voice in decision-making process. This is also very important. And often they are also not organized. Women workers, because they are also busy and maybe they are also not aware of the power of being organized. So there is also an important role for trade unions to support organizing these women workers to, collectively, discuss and advocate for their rights. So in the transition process, it is important that these workers work together collectively, being organized. This would be useful also when negotiating with the government, because government, they may have a willingness to address challenges faced by workers, but then when there are too many demands, it's also difficult to address in one go. So if workers can come together, organize, and discuss priority demands to be submitted to the government, that would also be helpful for the government. So as part of the transition process, organizing workers, especially women workers, and training them on their rights and training them to be leaders, to advocate for their rights, that is also a very important component. And in terms of what needs to be done, as you mentioned, I think inclusive approach is very important, an integrated approach. So inclusive, so not to leave anyone behind, but integrated, so it covers also different areas. It's not maybe about the issue of job loss, but they also require support in addressing basic needs. So it could be also, support in addressing basic needs. I don't know if it's about for community to improve infrastructure, to have improved access to water, and also improve maybe safety in neighborhood. And then the approach also needs to be gender responsive. So we need to understand specific challenges, aspiration of women and men. And then of course it needs to be rights-based. So rights of everyone needs to be respected as state or all other stakeholders take on work to work on just transition. In terms of important component to also support just transition, I think the report also mentioned about the importance of skills development opportunities. Yes, that's also very important, and that should be prepared based on the evidence collected in terms of, how many are working in what areas, etc. And then we also need maybe enterprise development opportunities, because maybe there is a need to initiate other local level economic opportunities to support livelihoods of people who are changing the jobs from mining to new jobs. And then of course, issue of occupational safety and health is very important, because a lot of workers in mining sector, they also face specific occupational injury and sickness, I think including respiratory disease, etc. So in responding to looking into these occupational challenges to ensure safety and health is also very important. And the efforts to advocate for, just transition should also cover extending social protection to these workers, because a lot of, I think, mining workers, especially in small scale mining, they also don't have any social protection. So once they lose the job, that's the end of their income. Although they have been, working so many years, they don't have any leave days, they don't have minimum wages, they don't have pension, they don't have social insurance, etc. So it is important for the government to, extend social protection to all workers. That would also, help the just transition process. And in all this process, it is very important also for the government to take lead, but in collaboration, in dialogue with key stakeholders, including employers' organizations and workers' organizations, so that solutions can be developed based on good understanding of these key stakeholders who are aware of, possible challenges and opportunities for just transition. So I think these are some of the points that are, I think, important for realizing just transition. And then ILO also has been working to produce a number of guidelines and policy briefs in the areas of just transition. So I will share the link to this website so that you can explore further. So thank you for your attention.